So Endwalker is coming to a close, and we already have a sneak peek at the new skills we'll be getting in Dawntrail. And while the new skills are cool, for the most part, I wanted to quickly take a minute to look at the current Endwalker skills that I think are useless, inoptimal, or just plain bad. And just for the record, I won't be considering deep dungeon effectiveness. High-end rating will be the main priority I will use when it comes to judging their uselessness. So, Krasis. Probably the hottest take on this list, and I'm pretty much a Sage main, so that's saying something. But Krasis just feels useless. On its own, Krasis doesn't do anything. And when you stuff a bunch of extra resources like Hyama, Cardia, and Sotera inside the short 10-second window, the Krasis boost ends up providing an underwhelming 600 healing potency, less than a single Drew Cole. Especially when you compare Krasis to the other level 86 healer mitts, which actually do stuff on their own and are good. Hopefully in Dawntrail there's enough tank damage where sustain is actually relevant, so I actually feel a need to use it. But my real hope is sometime down the line it gets the Hollows treatment where it gets buffed to have an additional effect. Something like guaranteeing the next Sage heal on the target becomes a guaranteed crit. That would be really cool. Cure 1. Cure 1 is infamous for probably being the biggest noob trap skill in the game. There's almost always a better skill to use than Cure 1 if you really need to heal someone, such as Solus, Tetra, Benison, Regen, or Cure 2. The only time it's okay to use Cure 1 is if you are under level 30 and don't even have access to Cure 2, or if you are somehow under 1000 mana, which should almost never happen. Even dying and reviving spawns you with more than 1000 mana. I get that new players sometimes come from other JRPGs and treat mana like a scarce and critical resource and get scared of using Cure 2, but in Final Fantasy XIV it is very rarely an issue. If you're a new white mage or new to healing, you'll become a much better player if you just pretend that Cure 1 and the free Cure trait simply do not exist. Trust me, I've been there. Red Mage's Reprise and Enchanted Reprise. So Red Mage's basic Jolt and Verero combo does 700 potency and gives you 10 mana. For the cost of 20 mana, you can do 2 Enchanted Reprises for an incredible total of 680 potency. Red Mages want to constantly be gaining mana to do their big damage melee combo, so spending your precious mana to do less damage is not a great usage. The only positive trait of Enchanted Reprise is that it's an instant cast for when you can't hard cast, but in that situation, it means you've already failed spectacularly at planning your no-cast melee combos and your free instant casts. And I would still rather cast nothing than spend my mana on Reprise. Black Mage's Scathe. So Scathe is a Black Mage spell that does 100 potency of unaspected damage for 800 mana. Unaspected means it doesn't get the damage buff that you get for being in your fire and ice phase. So even if you get the meme 20% double damage proc, you're still doing peanuts damage. Unlike White Mage, Black Mage's mana is actually relevant and it's their main source of damage. So spending 800 mana means you'll lose a fire forecast in your fire phase, meaning that Scathe will most of the time cost you more damage than simply pressing nothing. It's a pretty bad spell when doing nothing is better than using it. Maybe the only use case of Scathe in the game is when you intentionally want to do less damage, such as chipping your living liquid doll in tea, but overall, Scathe is just pretty bad. Machinist's Flamethrower. So Flamethrower is Square's attempt at making a damaging channel over time skill. They must have learned their lesson because Flamethrower is so useless they never tried it again. The main issue with the skill is it doesn't generate heat, which is Machinist's main gauge for their burst combo. Even for multi-targets, it's not worth using Flamethrower because the Machinist's standard AoE skills actually generate heat. Maybe this skill is okay in dungeon packs when there's multiple targets and you're capped on gauge, but that's not really relevant to high-end rating, but at least Flamethrower kinda looks cool. Summoner's Physick. On paper, this skill seems fine. After all, Red Mage has a 350 potency heal that does 10k HP healing. So a 400 potency heal can't be too bad, right? Well, as a funny prank, the Summoner heal doesn't actually scale on their main stat, which is Int. That means with full current best in gear and 75k HP, Summoner's Physick heals an incredible 600 HP. It would take over 5 minutes of non-stop Physick spamming for a Summoner to heal their own HP bar. You can safely take Physick off your hotbar, but if you're like me with ADHD, you can spam it during fight downtimes. And maybe, just maybe by some crazy miracle, the 400 HP heal could one day save someone's life. So good luck with those odds. Even then, it costs mana, and while it's not a lot, you're essentially just burning your mana for no reason at that point. Ninja's Huton. We're not talking about the upgraded Hyosho, but just Huton. The main gimmick of Huton is that it has a bind, which has no effect on raid enemies. So almost 100% of the time you'll want to use your mudras on Raiton, which just does flat out more damage for the same cost. The only good thing about Huton, I guess, is it has 5 more range than Raiton. But if you're in a situation where that's relevant, something in the pool has already gone terribly wrong. Paladin's Shield Bash. So similar to Huton, Shield Bash just straight up doesn't do anything in raids since raid enemies can't be stunned. Since it's a GCD, you could press literally anything else in your kit and you'll be better off. Not only that, tanks already have an OGCD stun button that comes free with the roll, meaning Shield Bash is even more useless. Unless you're a deep dungeon enthusiast, or you just like spamming Shield Bash on dungeon pulls, you can remove Shield Bash from your bar and safely forget that it ever existed. Samurai's Kaishi Higanbana. Not the normal Higanbana, the Tubame recast Higanbana. The Tubame is a powerful samurai spell that lets them immediately repeat one of their sticker moves. You can either spend a charge of it doing your sticker AoE move or your big damage single target move. Alternatively, you can waste it by using it on your dot to immediately reapply a single target dot that doesn't stack with the first dot you put. It is mathematically impossible for this move to be a damage gain in any scenario. So the sole purpose of Kaishi Higanbana is just to keep Tubame's current effect thematically. By the look of things, in Dawntrail, the mini samurai rework is removing this skill. So, Endwalker Samurais, if you want to use it, this is your last chance. And finally, Astro's Undraw. When people think of useless skills, Undraw is usually the first to come to mind. Giving your team Astro cards gives them a decent damage boost, and also gives you a seal needed for activating your Astrodyne, which gives you a variety of helpful buffs. So pressing Undraw, which deletes your card with no upside whatsoever, is actively detrimental to you and your team. Even in an extremely niche scenario where you have 30 seconds of fight downtime and you want to make a triple seal Astrodyne, you can accomplish the same effect of rerolling your card by just pressing draw again. It's interesting that Summon Celine was removed from Scholar since it was considered redundant, but it's just a cruel joke that Undraw survived Endwalker and Chitin didn't. So those are the 10 skills I consider the most useless as Endwalker comes to an end. Maybe in 5 years, people might come across this video and we can all nostalgically reminisce about how we used to love using our Tubame on Higanbana, but as it is, I'm excited for Dawntrail and hopefully we will have a lot less useless skills clogging up our hotbars. Thanks for watching, TYFP.